Hello, friend, and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 2.7 with Peter and Anne-Marie.
Hello!
Tonight we are covering Wolf in the Fold, but previously we heard about the Doomsday Machine, which we covered last time. Mm-hmm. I popped a thing on both the Facebook group and on Tumblr's about the shuttle bay control station in The Child that they could really do done with in Doomsday Machine, and many other episodes for that matter as well. Martin Thompson, on the presence of Lieutenant Palmer, found this out. I looked into this episode a bit, mainly because I wanted to see what the original effects for the machine looked like, and it seems that Nichelle Nichols, who wasn't under contract at the time, turned this down in favour of a singing engagement.
Okay.
Apparently this enraged the producers, who hired a replacement actress as a threat to make sure Nichols kept herself available for Star Trek in the future.
Or they could have given her a contract.
Yes. Anyways, tonight's episode, Wolf in the Fold, was written by Robert Bloch, who also wrote Cat's Paw, and as with that story, this is adapted from a short story of his. This is his last one, as he didn't get on with the Season 3 production team. And it's directed by the Pevinator.
Okay.
Captain's log, stardate 3614.9. Mr. Scott has fallen under suspicion of having brutally murdered an Argelian woman.
She's dead, Jeff.
You. And you.
They were to be married.
Prefect, I didn't kill anyone. I couldn't.
How could any man do such monstrous things?
I swear to you, I did not kill your wife or the other ladies.
Fear, anger, hatred. Anger feeds the flame. Oh, there is evil here. Monstrous, terrible evil. Hatred of all that lives. Hatred of women. Reshak!
So you start with a belly dancer for an unnecessarily long period of time.
Oh, yeah, it goes on, doesn't it? Yeah, it all feels very The Cage as well.
Yeah. And then you've got, do you like Argelius, Scotty? And it's a hedonistic planet.
Another one, yes.
Yeah.
A very Roddenberry of them.
And he bangs the table in appreciation, but apparently you clap with the lights. That's a bit sort of Buck Rogers or something like that,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit naff, isn't it? Yes. What do we think of the decor? It's all very Middle Eastern, isn't it? Which feels a bit awkward.
Yeah, along with the music.
Yeah, and some of the costumes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what they did, though, in those days in science fiction. It was, you have the Planet America, I suppose, and then you also have Planet Other Places.
Yeah, the problem is that Planet America is usually Earth, and other places are foreign, dangerous places, or places with dubious morals.
Yeah, although this, I quite like, though they say it's hedonistic, as though that's a bad thing, but then other characters talk about it being a planet of gentle people. Do you know what I mean? And them having a great enlightenment. And so it's not portrayed as badly as you might think, apart from...
Yeah, but the problem is that it's hedonistic, but only in as much as the women are very available. There's no suggestion the men are, It's very...
Yes, and that is the problem.
Misogynist idea of hedonistic.
So it's sort of...
It's constant all the way through, constant referrals to, let's go to, I know, a nice bar with women.
Yeah, it's all,
like,
it's very much, well,
really?
You make you think it's a brothel, to be honest. I don't have a problem in some ways with the idea that it's a Middle Eastern planet, in that it could have been a much worse portrayal in that aspect, given that that's how they did things at the time. Doesn't mean it would be appropriate to do it now, but that's how they did things then. But I have huge issues with the idea that, it's hedonistic, and you'll just describe a whole planet that way, even if it only applies to half the population.
Yeah.
Because if you also saw men doing belly dancing, or just, walking around in not very much or something, it would be fine. Also, as well, again, it's so heterosexual. Where are the women getting turned on by the women?
Yep.
So it's not really hedonistic, actually, because if you think about the hedonistic societies American and British writers would have known about, they would have been very much everything goes. I mean, There would very much have been threesomes and orgies and it wouldn't have all been cishet by any means.
Anyways, our belly dancer, Cara, is played by Tanya Lemony, who was in The Flying Nun. Hurrah! We really ought to watch that one of these days. Or maybe not.
No.
Yes. Apparently her trademark, according to IMDb, is belly dancing. So I guess that's how she got this gig. She did her own choreography.
Yeah.
But she had to have her navel covered for censorship reasons. Because, you can show lots of jiggly boobs, but heaven forbid somebody might see your belly button.
Well, they used to put a jewel in.
Well, that's what she does here, yeah.
Yeah, no, they usually do.
Well, they had to for the censors.
How bizarre.
Yep.
All the ones I've seen have worn a jewel, if you see what I mean. But how odd. Because I was in a restaurant once, this was a few years ago now, and just having a meal with a friend, and then a woman come in with but when I say a few years ago, we're still talking since the millennium, all right? She comes in with a ghetto blaster. I hadn't seen one of them in bloody goodness knows how long. Puts a tape in, again, and then she just starts belly dancing. It was really quite bizarre. Nobody was expecting it. It was very odd. Kirk says that he's invited the woman over to their table. Oh, what is interesting as well is that in the opening big panning shot, the only men in the room are our guys, and the other people watching the belly dancing are women.
Some of them are men. There's some guys there wearing the Starfleet uniform from the Cage.
Okay.
Rather bizarrely, but yeah.
And there's one woman in really hideous tights that look really scratchy. Anyway, so Scotty is sort of chatting her up by talking about fogs in Aberdeen. I'm
As you do, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then he says, I'll take you for a walk. And then Kirk says, go off and enjoy yourself. And then him and McCoy are having this conversation about the fact that Scotty was pushed against a wall and he had a concussion and it made him resentful against women. And they've just let him go off with a woman.
Well, not only that, but it's just bizarre. He was injured. There was an explosion that apparently was the fault of a woman, and as a result, he might hate all women. Really?
What? That makes no... Well,
I mean, far more likely to have been injured as a result of an explosion caused by a man, and is that going to mean he's going to hate all men? It's just bizarre.
It's really odd. I mean,
and then McCoy prescribes basically, a bit of shore leave nookie in order to sort him out. It's like, what?
Yeah, very, very bizarre. I get that, absolutely, yes, a knock on the head can change your personality.
Yes.
Head trauma can do all sorts of
They'd
stuff.
focused on that would have been fine.
If they just...
But it's undercurrent, he hates all women now because one of them...
Because of the woman, no. If it was he hates all women because of a head injury...
Yeah.
All sorts of things can happen as a result of head injury. That I don't have a problem with that. But also as well, why would he hate all women because one of them injured him? He would hate that woman possibly, and possibly unjustifiably if it was an accident. But not all of them. That's weird. That's like, oh no, I suffered an injury because of somebody who came from Birmingham, and now I hate all Brummies. It's got as much logic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's...
It's ridiculous, and it's just so weird. Really weird. Like, if they were having a conversation about, hopefully this surely's going to help Scotty. We need to cheer him up. He's had this nasty head injury. Fine. But if he's had a nasty head injury, what are you doing letting him with anybody unsupervised? I mean, really? Because if he's got a head injury that might make him violent? Yes,
violent. Yes, he was very violent.
Violent, yes. If he's got a head injury that might make him violent, then surely you should keep him away from everybody, really.
Indeed, yes.
Anyway, so then Kirk and McCoy are off to a brothel.
Yeah, and on the way out, McCoy feels up a woman.
Yeah, it's just...
creepy.
Hell. Then it all goes... Then they hear a scream.
And it's all foggy and very old London town looking.
It is very...
Wonder why.
It reminded me of... Is it a Doctor Who? I can't remember, where there's an old woman who finds a body and there's screaming.
You're thinking of Talons of Weng Chiang there,
yes.
With one of the classic old women roles from Doctor Who.
It's a floater, all right. You've got it, Gav. Oh, my house. You and Mama served with onions. Never seen anything like it in all my puff. Oh, make it all sick, that would. Oh.
Yes, that's totally where my brain went. It's a sort of Victorian London, but via Doctor Who rather than directly. So the belly dancer's dead from a stabbing, and Scotty sort of
stood with a
against a
knife.
wall, holding a knife, but also looking horrified at the same time. And he's moaning, and then that's your teaser.
Yep.
The whole thing plays out that Kirk mostly doesn't know if Scotty's done it or not because of the head injury. McCoy's like, no, he couldn't have done. And then you meet the chief administrator who's investigating this, and it's Piglet.
Yes, Hengist, played by John Fielder, who from 1968 until his death in 2005 at the age of 80 was the voice of Piglet, and you can still hear it when he talks in this as well.
Yep.
Selection of visible roles: he was a juror in 12 Angry Men, which is a fine film.
He was in Cannonball Run.
He was, which we saw a couple of days ago. It was like, oh, it's him again. And BJ Count 1.
Uh-huh.
Hey there, where you going? Not exactly knowing. Who says you have to call just one place? Oh, he's going everywhere. DJ McKay and his best friend there.
He's not from that planet because they're basically too busy being hedonistic to
Yes.
have an administrator.
Yes.
Right. So they hire administrators from other planets. Well, fair enough. If you don't want to do your own admin, you can pay someone else to do it. That's okay. That's why I'm a registry clerk.
Can't file shagging.
Is that my registrar's excuse then?
Yeah. Well, if we're allowed to call it.
So he's from Rigel 4.
We're only making plans for
Rigel.
Yeah, it's back again, isn't it?
And Scotty doesn't remember what happened. He's just got no idea at all. And you feel from him in this because he doesn't know if he's guilty or innocent.
Yeah, it's a very good performance by James Doohan.
It is, yeah.
Which it'd be very easy not to feel for him considering
Yeah.
events, but actually you do because he's very well portrayed.
Yeah.
Sort of pitiful figure.
And then they're talking about the law, and you've got Kirk having a conversation with Spock, who's left in the command of the Enterprise, saying that, they're subject to the law of this planet while they're there. And then this bloke appears and says, the law of Argalius is love. And you're just like, oh, pass me a bucket.
He's Prefect Jarris, who's played by Charles Macaulay, who's the voice and image of Landru in Return of the Archons. So we've seen him already. He was also Count Dracula at the beginning of Blackula.
Ah.
Yes, he has quite the hair in this.
He does. The problem is that he reminded me too much of Roger Delgado, and I kept expecting him to be the master.
Yes.
And for him to be the villain after all, and he isn't. They talk about how in the old days before their enlightenment, they used to have ways of dealing with things. And his wife still has the ability. It's an empathic contact.
Sibo. Yes, it sounds more like an Ewok than a person, but there you are.
Yes. And then he's like, we'll go to my home to learn the truth. And Hengist is all, it's supposed to be official. And then he's like, well, I'm the top official. It can't be more official than me. Let's go to my home, which I like that. And then you have this weird conversation about the psycho tricorder. Have we had a psycho tricorder?
No,
before?
this is the
it
first
just makes
and only,
me
I
think
think.
of, in Lower Decks when Clippy goes wrong. Makes me think of that sort of a psychotic tricorder, psycho tricorder. Do you know what I mean?
It's supposed to be short for psychologist's tricorder.
Yeah, but it makes me think of a tricorder that's become psychotic. And the word of the murderers got out on this otherwise peaceful planet, and there's talk of closing Argalius to space traffic. Why don't they just say to traffic? If it's all spacefaring at this point, wouldn't they not say closing Argalius to traffic?
That suggests just, ground traffic, whereas they're talking about closing it off from people escaping the planet, basically.
Oh, okay. Fair. No, that would be logical. Fair enough. And then there's another stabbing.
Yes.
And again, Scotty's nearby. He was in the
Lieutenant
room.
Karen Tracy, who's played by Virginia Aldridge. This is her last acting gig.
Oh, she didn't really die.
No. She moved on. She moved on to writing.
Okay.
Including for The Twilight Zone and Knight Rider.
He just can't remember. And people are like, well, this is the second one, you're there. And again, with this, the lights go out as well. And Kirk is positing that maybe the head injury is the cause of all this. And then you've got a bloke who I thought I recognised.
Okay. The character's name is Mauler. And I know the actor was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, plus the usual TV suspects, so you maybe recognise him from an episode of Mission Impossible or something like that.
Or from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which we saw not that long ago.
Oh, right. That was the one, was it?
Yeah. It wasn't like, I know him really well. It was more, he's familiar. So that could be what it is.
It's played by Charles Deercop, apparently.
Anyway, he says that he was going to be married to the dancer, whose name I've managed to forget.
Was it Arla? Carla?
Something like that, wasn't it?
Cara.
Cara. He was going to be... Cara was the name of the... I used to pretend when I went round my grand's house and I used to dress up in all her scarves that I was an exotic spy and my name was Cara. Anyway.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you needed to know that.
Definitely.
Anyway, he was going to be married to Cara, but then Cara's dad says no, he was jealous of her and they used to argue all the time.
Yeah, this is Tark, who's played by Joseph Bernard, who is in The Flying Nun. So that's 2-1 to The Flying Nun here.
Oh, I see. You're doing a Flying Nun versus B-Day in the Bear thing. Meanwhile, over comms, you've got Spock talking about the this empathic technique. And he says that it's not strong enough to risk a man's life over. And Kirk says, look, we're here, we're subject to their laws. For now, at least, this is what we've got to do. And so then basically it's like they have a seance.
Yeah.
And then she starts saying, anger feeds the flame, there's evil here, and hatred of women. And she says some words that in your section they get unpacked, but it's not clear what those words are at this particular point. And then she screams and it all goes black and she dies. And then Scotty's holding her when the lights come back on. This does not look good. And then Kirk says, on the Enterprise, they've got machines that will help Scotty to recall his memories because he says, I don't remember. And the others are asking him, and he says, I don't remember. And I think Kirk is reasonable in all of this, in that he's saying, you know, the machines will tell us the truth, whether he did it because of the head injury or he didn't do it. We can find out. So whereas McCoy's like, they're going to exonerate him or whatever, Kirk's like, no, not necessarily, but they'll show us the truth. And so the prefect says, fine, we'll go to your ship, we'll use those machines, but you need to understand that if you've fallen back into what they effectively call the old ways, then we're going to have to use the old punishment, which is death by slow torture.
Lovely.
Yes.
Yes. So then we have a very long court scene, effectively, in the conference room. It's apparently the longest uninterrupted scene in the original series at over 15 minutes long, and yeah, it drags. They're using the equivalent of a lie detector. They established Scott felt another presence when he went to help Sibo. It's confirmed by the computer he didn't kill her, and he has no memory of killing the others. Kirk suggests using the psycho tricorder to establish what happened, but Piglet objects. Jarvis is happy for them to proceed, however. Mauler takes the chair and claims Kara loved him, but it's Tark's turn to object, as apparently she didn't like his jealousy, which is already soap opera-y, isn't it?
It is, but it's interesting that he thought she did, and that's why it doesn't flash up on the...
Like
so it's not telling you what the truth is, it's telling you whether or not the person concerned
believe.
is lying, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
not quite the same thing.
Kirk goes back to what Sibo said before she died about ancient evil, and they check out the phrases she used, and the computer identifies Red Jack, a.k.a. Jack the Cocking Ripper, as our friend JJ would say.
Yeah.
Wow, was it such a cliche then for murderers to turn out to be the reincarnation of Jack the Ripper? I'm not sure. Of course, here it's the idea that the Ripper is an alien possessing humans, which has been recycled many times since. I mean, at least Babylon 5 took a slightly different approach. It was actually Jack the Ripper, but hey.
Yeah.
Jarvis remembers Sibo talking about a hunger that never dies. Spock supposes it may be an immortal life form that was the Ripper, and the computer suggests a gaseous being that survives on fear and takes over bodies to kill. So a killer fart. I've had a few of them.
I've had more.
Spock supposes that some sort of hypnotic screen is in operation, blinding everyone to the identity of the killer when they strike. Let's say it's all very talky and static. Piglet gets all antsy again, and again Jarvis overrules him, which is all very sus. The computer identifies similar deaths in the universe, and Spock points out they occurred in a straight line to Earth. Red Jack moving out as humanity expanded. The last murders occurred on Rigel 4, which of course is where Piglet was from. I try to put him on the stand, but he resists. Then the computer identifies the murder weapon from the original killing as originating from Rigel 4. Piglet, or rather his stunt double, makes a run for it.
Oh, it's a fucking obvious stunt double. It's terrible.
He kicks Shatner very dramatically in the chest. Kirk punches him out, but McCoy, in his immortal catchphrase, pronounces, "He's dead, Jim." Then the lights dim, and we hear Red Jack laughing in Piglet's voice as it takes over the ship, which is all
It's
bizarre.
Piglet the Ripper.
They've kind of treated it electronically to make it sound more scary, at least. McCoy tells Kirk that he has some sedative that would tranquilise an active volcano. Wow. Forget horse tranquilizers. That's something else.
Volcano tranquilizers or something else.
Kirk uses his skills versus computers to suggest Spock use a mathematical problem it can't solve to flush Red Jack out. And finally we get some action as they're stuck in a turbo lift in freefall and have to overload manually, followed by the life support going out. An unnamed nurse arrives with a tranquilizer, and George Takei does an amusing turn as the first to be dosed up, swiveling around on his chair like a child.
Yeah, I like that.
The plan is to trank the whole crew so they have no fear. Meanwhile, Spock gets the computer to calculate pi to keep it all busy. Back in the conference room, oh hooray, Kirk goes to trank Jarvis, but it's too late as he's possessed by Red Jack now. It's Spock to the rescue as he gives him the neck pinch, but then Piglet is resurrected somehow and takes Yeoman Tancred hostage. Kirk takes his stunt double down and dead Piglet is tranquilised. So we get the weird phenomena of stoned Piglet repeating die, die.
It's very, very odd.
Very.
And kill, kill.
Yeah, it's a very scary episode of Winnie the Pooh.
Die, 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 everybody die. Kill you all.
They beam him into deep space with a comedy turn by a tranked up Mr. Kyle. Spock supposes the consciousness may survive, but Kirk thinks it will die finally. I don't know what he's basing that on. Kirk tries to persuade Spock to join him at the cafe with the women with the big... Let's go see, Scotty says, a line which apparently was sampled by Information Society in the late 80s for another of their songs. We've come across them before with What's on Your Mind, sampling Spock's Pure Energy line from Errand of Mercy. Although this time around the song is pure shite, so I shan't be using it.
Okay.
Then apparently there's 1993's Texas Audio sampling from this episode from Mystery Cafe, which is over 5 minutes of computerised nonsense, so we won't be playing out to that either.
You were a musician at the cafe. You played for the murdered girl. You played for the murdered girl.
Since she was a little girl, she danced for me. I know that it must be fun. I know that it must be fun.
Anyway, 3 women have been murdered and we still need to finish with a comedy lecherous moment, apparently. Sigh.
Also, what confuses me is I didn't think that Kirk at any point had taken a shot.
He hasn't.
So why is he so giggly?
He's not giggly.
He is sort of.
Not really, no. He's just sort of puzzled comically.
And then, like, afterwards, when he can't persuade the guys to come with him, he's like, oh, I guess I'm going to be alone. And I'm thinking, is this a wank joke?
No, I don't think so. Bizarre.
The thing is, the finishing on a comedy thing, that would have not come from the writers. That would have come from the studio. That was TV at the time.
Yeah, but the writers would be used to it, so, yeah. Any poignancy about the episode, the way that Scotty's played so well by Doohan, and sort of the potential horror in the story is all lost when you end with a comedy joke. It's
It is, but that, as I said, that would have been a studio directive at the time.
I mean, the sexual politics in this are horrible. I mean, would Scotty really hold a grudge against all women?
No, that's bollocks.
It's too obvious too early that it's Piglet who's responsible, and there's just that too long, boring scene in the conference room where we're just, stuck with Kirk, basically, running the trial, effectively.
And I don't mind them running the trial, it's just too long.
Yeah.
As in, if it was shorter, it would be fine. And it's obvious that it's Piglet. But I mean, Doohan's performance is great. And I think that what they should have... But again, it's a studio thing. They wouldn't have been able to. But nowadays, if they had written an episode like that, as in... with one of your main characters genuinely not knowing because he's had a head injury and all of that aspect, they would have ended on something either positive and healing but not lecherous, or perhaps haunting. They would have ended with Jimmy Doohan doing something as a close, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, probably he's, along with the rest of the crew, he's high as a kite at the end. So it's quite hard for him to show remorse, and it wasn't his fault in the first place either. But,
no.
But nevertheless, 4 women have died. It's just not good, is it? Really?
But again, it's only comparatively recently that any focus has been made on the victims rather than the killer.
When it comes to the Jack the Ripper stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about him.
Yeah, and the same is true of most other serial killers, that the focus is on the killer and not the victims. And actually, you can see a change a bit. There's a show that Quinn and I have been watching on catching serial killers. So it's a police procedural based on forensics and stuff in the main. And the early series, because we've watched it from the beginning, are very much focused on the killer and the crime. But the more recent ones have had a lot more focus on the victims, and victims' families have been given a voice if they want it. They don't have to have it, but if they want it. And sometimes the family don't, but a friend does, a family friend. And so it gives the victim more of a persona when you're watching than the killer. But that's very recent. And you think how long ago this was, we weren't born.
Yep, not great.
It's not great, but there's an extent to which it's of its time. And we've heard from Boss, who writes, "This is an odd episode. It starts with the crew enjoying a bit of time off in what looks like the set of a Sinbad movie." Yes, it does! Scotty, we are told, is in particular need of a break, as he's just had a nasty bump on the head via an accident caused by a female member of the crew. McCoy then goes on to explain the frankly ludicrous theory that this has given him a hatred of all women. Yeah. "I once had an accident with a brick wall, but I don't hate walls. I'm quite happy to continue to live in a house that has 4 of them." Yeah. This theory is instantly proven to be nonsense when he starts to chat up one of the dancers with one of the worst chat-up lines in history concerning the fog in Aberdeen. Yeah, yeah, it really is. The line appears to work, though, as the dancer leaves with him only to be brutally stabbed to death moments later. This happens 2 more times to Scotty, leading to a murder investigation, despite them being in a place where the only law is love. We also get a seance first, just to add a bit more weirdness. All this happens because they're not allowed to go to the Enterprise and use the available technology, which then gets forgotten 5 minutes later when they do exactly that. The main thing I took from the trial was how annoying the computer's voice was. Did it really need to announce that it was computing each time? The Enterprise then gets taken over far too easily again. Unfortunately, the voice of the killer that was trying to instill fear in the crew just produced giggles from me.
Yes.
It was a clever idea to defeat him using pie, although I have little time for people who don't like pies. At least the jokey ending didn't seem so out of place this time, because most of the crew was still high. I didn't dislike the episode, I just found it odd. Yeah. I mean, you're right that the jokiness doesn't seem out of place because they're high, but it still doesn't seem right to end the episode on that. As I said, there's stuff that's of its time. Doesn't make it right, but it's of its time. But it's just one of those things that if you did it now, you'd do it differently, very, very differently. And it's so sexist. It's horrible, and it means that possibly one of the best performances you ever see from Jimmy Doohan is kind of lost in a bad episode. Really.
Yeah. We've also heard from Sam Pioniona.
Oh dear. So we just watched Wolf in the Fold.
Yes.
So
What happens in it? For fuck's sake. Every time I'm like, now I'm behaving. Now I shall watch this with this new perspective where I just don't hate this episode, and it's 60s and it's their world and I'm different, and every time I decide that this happens.
Yep.
Federation in striptease lounge.
The way it starts, it appears that Mr. Scott, hit his head, so they prescribed him with a visit to a strip bar. Fair enough, but I mean
Nope.
Okay, and then there's the Planet of the Hedonists, which appears to mean that the women serve the men. I mean,
Yeah, because you won't get that body by living hedonist. Usually I won't argue about people's bodies, but
what we did learn was that women are good prey for the entity because women are scared more easily than men. I mean, Spock said it, so it must be true.
no.
Okay.
But you guessed the Jack the Ripper thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I mean, I have seen this a long time ago. Maybe it was subconsciously, but I really didn't remember. I just saw the streets full of fog, and I was, okay, looks like Jack the Ripper's there somewhere. And okay, then there was a stabbed woman, and okay, it turned out to be Jack the Ripper. So yes, space Google isn't very good. I mean, they have to ask very specific questions.
You should know that when you're using AI, you don't always get right answers.
Yeah, I mean, basically in the end, they told ChatGPT that, okay, imagine a monster that feeds on emotions, and that's what it did.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, what was it? Psycho Trigo, or I don't think it's ever mentioned again and has never been mentioned.
Probably not.
Because there are many cases before and after where reading someone's memory for the last 24 hours would have been really useful. And they appear to forget that Spock can mind meld with people, but never mind.
So one thing that they should forget or just try to be more accurate or something are panties.
Oh yeah, the dead technician, I can't remember her name, but yeah, upskirt, pretty clearly.
Yes.
Okay. There were some things that I did like about this. I mean, if you forget all the blatant sexism and terrible attitudes, and please don't kill me, but I mean, it was basically just a sort of whodunit murder mystery. And the fact that the perpetrator was actually some sort of energy alien feeding on the emotion terror, it was a twist that I did not see coming, which is good.
Yeah, but it went bizarre.
And
when the computer started to murder them.
No, but that was the other good thing, because I found it really funny that, I mean, there's the computer sprouting stuff like something from The Exorcist, that I'm going to kill you all, and everyone's just pretty nonchalant about it.
I think it's hideous. They had so many murdered women, and they are just acting like, let's behave like this thing is not existing.
You are actually correct. I mean, we had, one person's daughter was murdered, the other's wife, and they were pretty cool with it.
And the love of his life was murdered. He was kind of criminal in this planet because he didn't want to share his wife with another man, I guess. And he was jealous. What was that?
Still, I did find it funny that everyone was sort of drugged up in the last 5 minutes. Even though you are correct, I didn't think of it at the time. It really didn't suit it that people were just murdered. And then Kirk makes a joke about, hey, let's all go to the strip bar.
Oh my god.
And roll credits. 3 people just died.
There's so many things gone wrong here. I just can't even start by saying...
Well, I mean, it went so overboard with it, I just can't help but laugh.
No, definitely not laughing.
Okay, not laughing.
Okay, not
okay.
Not entertained.
Well, I was a bit by the end. Sorry.
Yes.
Let's see what they come up with next week, those wacky writers in the 60s.
I promise you I'm trying.
Yes, I know you are. You're very brave. For a woman. Okay.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh dear.
Bets on Sampo waking up dead in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I would pick you up on, because it's a conversation that I had with Quinn while we were watching, the idea that women scare more easily than men. It doesn't make sense in that particular society, but it does make sense in ours, in that women are preyed upon, including in the UK, by police officers. And if we go out, I have no idea what it's like in Finland, by the way, but in the UK, if you go out as a woman, you're told not to walk alone, which restricts what you can do. And if you do walk alone, you're supposed to let people know where you're travelling and what time you should arrive. And if you get a taxi, you're supposed to photograph the driver or the license plate and let somebody know as you're getting in it. Women are taught to fear, and so we in our society,
I think there's a difference between having more to be fearful about and being more naturally prone to fear, though, isn't there? I think.
Yeah, but the idea is, what Quinn was saying is that in our society and in the society that was writing this episode, women are more prone to fear, but with good reason because of what the society is like. It's just that doesn't... it's not about... it's not intrinsic to gender. It's about the way society shapes you. And because it's about the way society shapes you, it actually doesn't make sense in the society that we have on Argalius.
Yes, exactly.
So it doesn't make sense in that context, but it does make sense. You can understand why the writers put it in, because in their society, women are more fearful because there is more to be fearful of.
But good thought about, yes, why didn't Spock use the old mind meld,
yes.
really?
And do we ever see that psycho tricorder?
I don't think we ever hear of psycho tricorders again. It's just a weird thing, isn't it?
Because when they had the We Can Play Your Memories Like a Film in Buck Rogers, we was watching an episode later and we actually said, didn't we, while we was watching it?
Yeah, they had a bit of continuity.
Why don't they use that bloody machine? And they used the bloody machine!
Yes. Yeah.
What did the Llama God make of this? And did Jo watch this? And if so, is she talking to anybody anymore?
Llama God's log, Scotty, Fixie Tree, Keir, Yaig. The city was drowning in decay, chaos, immortality. A message needed to be sent, etched in blood, for all the world to see. A warning. Just to get this out of the way, for old time's sake, I think we should just acknowledge that, yes, it's Cocking Jack, the Cocking Ripper. Yes, very imaginative. Well done, Mr. Block. Although, was this the first time such a story had been written? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, not great. And obviously that immediately came to mind, if you know, you know. Now, I did say a couple of episodes back, I think it was the Who Mourns for Adonis, Adonais, whatever, that we're going to see even worse examples of Scotty's attitude and behaviour towards women. And yeah, this is the episode, the episode where Scotty kills 3 women. Yes, great. Lovable Montgomery Scott kills some women. But he probably doesn't, but it's not the best look for him. Yeah, this is a whodunit with someone who seems to be the obvious murder culprit, but kind of not, and I guess it's serviceable. It's a bit of a strange episode. It's a bit of a strange one. It's a bit of a slog, to be honest. There's not a lot of tension, because I think through the episode you know that Scotty's not going to be the one to have done it, and given the cast size, that leaves a small number of actual possible suspects, so yeah. The slowness is also not helped by the fact that we spend at least 2.5 minutes watching belly dancing at the opening. I mean, that's not a bad thing in itself, a nice display of dancing, but just a very odd thing for the episode to linger on with a short on running time. And the investigation itself is very drawn out, with lots of stupid moments that allow a new murder to happen, including a typical the lights go out, there's a scream, someone else is murdered. I mean, that is a great little cliche thing, but it's not really executed, pardon the pun, with a lot of flair or panache, so yeah, it's not particularly great. And as the episode goes on, it does become more obvious that it might have been Hengist, so yeah. Especially given that right at the start, he proclaims that only Scotty's fingerprints were on the murder weapon, whilst he is himself holding the murder weapon and rubbing it through his hands. Yeah, contamination evidence much? But yeah, there was definitely one point in the episode where there's mention of unsolved cases of large numbers of murders of women, to which Jo just snorted, because yeah, bless you, the 1960s, or maybe not. Was it a more naive time, or just a time that didn't really want to acknowledge what was actually going on? I guess in a way, unintentionally, it's fitting that it turned out to be the local police doing a murder, because yeah, that's actually depressingly topical now, and probably was depressingly topical back then as well. It's just a lot less known about, not spoken about. Still, at least he was disposed of efficiently, maximum dispersal into space. Is that really the best thing the Enterprise crew could have done? Because, you know, they had this nearly immortal entity that, you know, they could have learned a lot from, but yeah, they've got form, because they did also participate in the destruction of Apollo a couple of episodes earlier, so yeah, why not? And then we get a really awkward ending where Kirk tries to get Spock to go on the pool, where the rest of the crew are still drugged up, and the murders haven't really been resolved, and there's people in shock. I mean, yeah, they did find the murderer, but they didn't save the day. There were other deaths. There's Cybo's husband who had to deal with her murder. Yeah, there's a lot that's unresolved, so yeah, very, very strange ending that, the forced laugh, so yeah, a bit mixed really. There's a couple of interesting things though, of course. We get introduced to the Psycho Tricorder. Qu'est-ce que c'est? We don't think we hear about that again, do we? Probably for good reason. We get 3 he or she at Dead Jim, which is something. And I was going to comment on the fact that Scotty makes a big deal about how Aberdeen and Scotland is so foggy because their set was foggy, so they didn't have to decorate the floor. But actually, as I was thinking about it, I remembered the first time that I visited some friends who live up the coast from Aberdeen, and they live near Slains Castle, which is one of the inspirations for Castle Dracula. And it was actually really foggy there, and we went to visit the castle, and we couldn't see it till we were nearly upon it, and then the castle loomed out of the mist, so it was quite atmospheric. And yeah, I guess I actually can't argue against that stereotype too much. Although, you know, it's not quite the way that Scotty made out, but yeah. Anyway, so a middling episode this really, and a lot of aspects of the story could have been handled better, so yeah. Oh well, I guess the increase in quality wasn't going to last forever. Still, as ever, I'll be interested to find out what everyone else made of this. I hope nobody's suffering from death by chocolate at this point, and until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fucking Jack the Cocking Ripper.
Yeah, and it may have been less cliched back then. it's hard to say now, you know, sort of 50, 60 years afterwards. It feels very cliched.
At a guess, I would say it probably wasn't cliched for telly, but it probably was already for theatre and writing.
Yeah, heaven knows. But yes, and the disposal of Jack at the end is a bit, yes.
Yeah.
Particularly as it points out, it probably won't kill it, the being. It says it's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels very unsatisfactory, really.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it's like when you're watching a really shit Hammer horror that's got Peter Cushing in it, because Peter Cushing's good, but the film's shit. And like in this, it's like Jimmy Doohan's good, but the episode isn't really. It's not.
No. Hey ho, let's find out what Drew and Tracy thought.
Hello, this is our feedback for Wolf in the Fold.
And what do we think of that one then?
It's not very good
It's
episode.
just crazy bonkers, this one.
It's not a classic.
So, starts off with Scotty and the belly dancer.
It starts off terrible and
Which
it
was
doesn't
like,
improve from there.
What the
dance
fuck is going on?
Every single time they have like a dance, like a sexy woman dancing, it just goes on for too long. That's every single time, isn't it? And this was once again.
Define too long as opposed to shouldn't be doing it at all.
Just have 30 seconds of it, not like about 3 minutes.
So Scotty says, do you want to go for a walk in the fog?
Yes.
Who has ever said that in their right mind? Do you want to go for a walk in a fog? That instantly sounds a bit dodge, doesn't it?
It does.
And she ends up like with like knife in her back or being stabbed. And how Kirk knows that she's been stabbed 12 times just by looking at her.
I thought that as well.
You know, that's an amazing medical examiner, isn't he?
Yep.
So she was an Argilian woman.
Yeah, okay.
From Argilius.
Okay. He's paying more attention than me.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting that I actually picked that up. That's why I just wanted to kind of say that. But it was good to see Kirk's wraparound again.
Yeah,
Is that like the format of his uniform going forward?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he always is.
But that's like 2 episodes we've watched now and he's got the wraparound on.
They keep saying, like, oh, all of this could be caused by a knock on the head. Does a knock on the head really turn into a mass murderer, does it?
So Scotty has severe concussion and then turns into...
resentful against all women.
Yeah, what was that about?
It's just bananas writing, isn't it?
Yeah. I said to you at some point, someone was obviously sniffing a bit of glue, like when they was writing this, because it was just bonkers.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're in the meeting room.
Yep.
And they're going through, like, the possible causes of who's like to blame and stuff like that. And suddenly, all points to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, it's that bit where Kirk goes...
Where the fuck does that come from?
This is all pointing to Jack the Ripper, and we're like, did we miss a bit? No, it's just garbage,
Where does that
it?
come from? That was crazy.
Yep. We liked when McCoy's injecting them all with MDMA, tranquilizers. No wonder it's a jollier ship on the fleet. Yeah.
And we was also like, when they said, oh, we are all fed on death. Even vegetarians.
Yeah.
What in the fuck does that mean? That's just crazy.
When Spock opened up the panel on the bridge and like you could see from inside view, and the Enterprise has got loads of like old transistors from like the 60s in it. So no wonder it was troubling to compute pi, wasn't it?
But you have to be a little bit kind there because it was in the 60s that this was filmed. They didn't know what kind of Transformers were going to be in the future.
At least, like, when you're looking at the outside, it looks futuristic, but that was just really ancient stuff, wasn't it?
And I have to say, I know I always pick up on the fact that the stunt doubles just don't look fuck all like who they're looking at. But the Rigel 4 guy, when he was, like, fighting, you could clearly see the guy had, like, a big, like...
Bald cap
on. It was just horrendous. And the fact that you think he's dead and they put him sitting at the table.
Well, yeah. It's weird when they go, oh, let's just put him on the chair and lean him over. I think it's a good bit, actually, when he all of a sudden jumps up. That's a good, like, twist kind of scare thing, isn't it?
But he's not. He's possessed, isn't he?
Well, yeah, but it's good. That's the one good bit of the episode, I'd say.
Yeah. And what is this... Oh, let's go down to this planet where all the women are, and they never finish that sentence. It's just you sexist pricks.
Yeah, this isn't a good episode at all.
No,
it's terrible. It's had 2 good ones, But now we return to the rubbish.
Yeah. Anyway, leave it there.
Okie dokie.
Nothing more to say. Oh, you didn't say it was a classic.
It's not a classic
thank
at all,
fuck for
no.
that, yeah. That's one down.
Yep.
Anyway, see you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
In terms of the we're all fed on death, even veggies, it's because something has to die.
And plants are still alive.
Yes. Yeah. They're not sentient.
So that bit
but
makes
they're alive.
sense.
That's what I
and
think.
they got to Jack the Ripper because of the Red Jack, which is one of Jack the Ripper's nicknames, being mentioned by Sibo before she carked it. So that at least had a sort of a logical train of thought.
But he's had a knock on the head, and it was caused by a woman, so he hates all women. Doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
A knock on the head can change somebody's personality, and it can cause amnesia.
Yeah.
But the fact that you got a knock on the head from a woman and you hate all women, that's just fucking bollocks.
Yeah. Yeah, and Banana's writing, I think, is fair description of it, really. Oh, the green top isn't permanent. I think we do see the gold a few times in second season, though the green top...
That just makes me think of milk.
Right. The green top does get a lot of outings and then completely disappears by the third season, so... Yeah. Oh, and the way they prop up Hengist's corpse on the desk rather than laying it down with some respect is quite funny. Yeah.
Maybe they don't have any respect at that point. I don't know. Maybe too many of them are tranked up at that point. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, it's those old transistors aren't what drew my attention. You've got the transistors at the top. I bloody dates it, but, you know, it's not their fault, like Tracy says. And then you've got all the wires, and fair enough, because you've got to be concentrating on the wires. But to the left of the wires, it just looked fucking shonky with 3 big red buttons and, I don't know, what was it, popping paper? I don't know, it was bad.
It has to be said they don't do as well as Next Generation with the isolinear chips, which
no,
at least, you know, not only look futuristic then, but still do relatively now as well.
Yeah.
So better vision of the future there, I think. Grand. Thank you, guys.
So what did Purry make of this? Does he live anywhere near Aberdeen? Like, Llama had visited it. What does he make of the fog? Does he use it as a chat-up line?
Yeah, I would hope not.
Hello, Args. Purry here to talk about Wolf in the Fold. Now, sadly, after a run of good episodes, we get this. So, I don't know if I enjoyed this first time round when I didn't know the revelation behind this and kind of the twist to it, because I think on a first watch, and I'll be interested to hear probably Sampo and Yana again on their first watch through this, specifically Yana, I think, what they thought of kind of the mystery, because initially it does kind of bumble along with a nice mystery in a is Scotty guilty because he got hit in the plate, you know, he's on leave because there was an accident in engineering. He got blasted across the room and it made him sexist, which is apparently a thing that can happen in space. Yeah, and he suddenly seemingly keeps getting found with dead women and bloody knives in his hand. And there's a murderer. And, you know, obviously it's a nice, civilized, happy planet, but all their penalties are death. Roddenberry goes back to that well, doesn't he? Yeah, it's kind of... I think the problem is that when I'm watching it, I'm distracted with two things. One, the administrator is voiced by Piglet, I believe. The guy did the Piglet voice from Winnie the Pooh. Which, hearing Piglet goes, I'll kill you all, is kind of hurting me in the childhood. The other part is that I can't... the revelation is, of course, that... was it Piglet? Was it Scotty? And that's what I wasn't very clear on. Or was it random people all the way through were possessed by this spirit Red Jack, who turns out to be, and I can only ever hear Gillian saying this regarding a certain episode of Avalon 5, fucking Jack the Cocking Ripper. I'm done with Jack the Ripper. I've been done with Jack the Ripper for quite some time. I know it was maybe new and fresh now, but every time, he was actually... Could you give us a rest with, the Jack the Ripper was a mysterious force, and that's why he was never caught, because he was possessing different people or something. I don't know, and neither do I care. There are some clever bits in this, but it meanders so much in the, is it a murder mystery? And I think if they played a straight murder mystery, maybe with the alien twin, bit to it, that would have been good, but then they have the beating the computer with maths. Spock tells it to calculate pi. Why don't they do this all the time? Like, to disable other ships? Star Trek 2. Could they have just, basically said the equivalent of, and I hope I don't set anyone off this, Alexa calculate pi forever. And that'll disable a computer. Is that like electronic warfare now? Because it seems to manage to fool the ship's computer into spitting out our Jack the Ripper. And yeah, eventually they spaced Piglet. You saw that on telly. We all saw that Piglet got spaced. But yeah, just in general, I mean, they reused a lot of stuff. We get the Venus dance music reused for the belly dancer wearing what appears to be an outfit made mostly of. The material our outfit reminded me of was a time when Iona, my wife, had to arrange a hen night, and the hen had decided she wanted everyone in grass skirts, and the cheap costume, Iona had to order basically a big box of cheap grass skirts, and that's what her outfit reminds me of, as if she'd made it entirely out of cheap costume stock grass skirts. I think the fact that I'm getting to that point, aside from Scotty's chat-up thing was apparently to tell her about the fog in Aberdeen, I've seen the fog in Aberdeen, and I can guarantee you it is not romantic. I don't want to diss Aberdeen too much, but it's not the most romantic city. Glasgow has a certain romance to it, with also the tinge of danger of stabbing. Edinburgh's got the old thing, Inverness is up in the Highlands, and Aberdeen is a city mostly made with oil money and has all the beauty of a massive petrochemical industry. So yeah, I've offended everyone from Aberdeen now, and probably, I don't know, offended Jack the Ripper aficionados, so I'll leave it there. I hope we get a better episode next time, but all that remains me to say is to keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll hopefully feedback in the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye! I love it that Aberdeen is not romantic. It's got all the beauty of a major petrochemical industry. Okay, so that wasn't a nice chat up line at all. Thank you for the context.
I've googled Aberdeen, and it appears to have a nice looking cathedral and university, and then the rest of it is like Croydon.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Croydon of Scotland.
Maybe. Well, it scores more highly. Well, I suppose Croydon's got the Minster, but it definitely hasn't got anything as nice looking as the university. So.
Okay.
But yes, JJ's ears are definitely burning tonight. I tell you, that's thanks to the old Babylon Project podcast when they covered the Babylon 5 version of Jack the Ripper. Yeah, and yes, you making the connections there with Justice, another hedonistic society that has ridiculously over the top punishments. Just mad.
But also, you're so right. If you can disable a ship's computer by getting it to calculate pi, why don't they weaponise that? Why don't they do that all the fucking time? Why don't they learn what that is in Klingon and disable all of their computers?
I mean, I think I'm not an expert on computers by any means, but I think you can kind of do that these days just by making a computer overwork. You can slow somebody's computer down doing that, can't you? So I suppose it's kind of a thing. I mean, let's face it, they got so much wrong in the 60s. That's probably closer than what else. But yeah, probably is that all I just hear is bloody Richard Herndl from Five Doctors going,
What an extraordinary fellow. As easy as pie? As easy as pie?
Whereas I think of, I don't even know what story it is, but it's a Patrick Troughton and it's got Zoe and Jamie, and he defeats the computer by getting it to do a calculation that ties it in knots.
Yeah, that happens in Invasion.
Yeah.
Zoe fries the computers in that. And I think they do it to an extent in Crotons as well.
I think it's used more than once.
Yeah.
I think it's the Troughton equivalent of reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, to be honest.
Pretty much. Well, there we go. That's Doctor Who and not Star Trek. Getting back to the Trek. Is it a better episode next time? Well, it's one I'm very familiar with. I had one video for a long while of Star Trek, which I purchased. It was cheap in a newsagent's, and it consisted of The Changeling, which is the episode we're covering next time. Yeah, we've probably got a tune for that one already.
Yeah, because we probably used it at Deep Space Nine, though, haven't we?
Quite probably, yes. Unfortunately, it's also paired up with the Apple. Really don't hold your breath for that one.
Oh,
but
no.
The Changeling's okay. It's kind of like Star Trek the Motion Picture done in 50 minutes, which, let's face it, is actually preferable. But anyway, I'll see if it still stands up or not. That's on Thursday the 28th. But next week, We have a Lower Decks episode on the 20th, and that's a Mathematically Perfect Redemption, which is a stupid title for an episode, and it's a bit of an odd one as well. But anyway, we'll get to that next week. Until then, take care, cheery bye.
Bye.
The opening music for this podcast was provided by the talented Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Palastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can find us over on Mastodon. Our addresses are on the show notes for this podcast.
Shut it down!
You sexist pricks.